2024 to order with roll call, please.
Collier.
Here.
McAlpine.
Here.
Dudek.
Here.
Walrath.
Here.
Stefani.
Here.
Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, Brian, could you get see if anybody signed in, please? While he's doing that, I just wanted to throw out a compliment to the young man that's going to get the piece of paper I need. What an outstanding job he did preparing my Mayor's Roundtable. Can't thank you enough. You represent well. Had a lot of positive feedback on your work. I couldn't have done it without you, my friend, so there too. And then also, I'll mention this again on Tuesday, but I wanted to thank Eric, Courtney, Brian for all the hard work that you've done trying to get the information out about home rule. We've had some extremely successful meetings with the public. I think we concluded with 14 individual meetings regarding home rule and what our purpose is for that. The information is readily available still online. We're utilizing some of our other social media channels. So there is time still for people that are interested to contact staff. But we've had over 200 people participate in the individual meetings. So that's outstanding. And the feedback that we're getting from the attendees is great, especially about Ms. Courtney here and her delivering of her presentation. So thank you again for all that you've done to represent the village. Now moving to the open forum where the public is invited to make an issue-oriented comment on any matter of public concern not otherwise on the agenda. I have one sign in. Chris?
I saw this article.
Oh, hold on one sec. You gotta state your name and phone and your address for the record, please.
Okay, Chris. I live at 446 Lloyd Street, and I recently got this in the paper. If it does pass, we will know the outcome on Wednesday. From what it says in here, that it's not it is go to structure, infrastructure, and other stuff. According to this, it says it will go to other events also. So I was just wondering what, if it does pass, is there any way that the public can follow where the money actually goes?
Yeah, absolutely. The board has made it very clear that any additional funds, if we're successful with home rule and we're successful with implementing the 1% home rule sales tax, that money would go towards infrastructure. That was a misquote in the paper. But we are steadfast in our decision to put that all towards infrastructure for the time being, yeah.
But is there somewhere where the public can go to look and see where that money actually is being spent?
Well, it's on our website, or we've been pushing information out on our social media channels. If people are interested in it, it's at caryillinois.com. You go to Home Rule, and there's a font of information there with regards to what this is and what it's not, and what the resources would go to if we were able to become home rule and implement a home rule sales tax. Sure.
So also, right, as we do the budget each year, such as you being at this one, we'll do the same thing next year, and that's when, if home rule passed and a 1% sales tax was implemented, we would talk about that revenue source at that meeting next year to figure out where those dollars are going to go and what infrastructure projects it would be used on. So right now, right, one, we don't know if it's going to pass, if something would be implemented, and we also don't know what that dollar amount really is. So we wouldn't be able to plan and or use it until next year.
Okay. I just saw this, and it says it could be Rotary Park or events downtown.
That's the
other
misquote the mayor's referring to. It is infrastructure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris. Is there anybody else who would like to address the village board? I will go ahead and close open forum at 9:05. Thank you. Now, the reason we're here is a review of our fiscal year 2024-2025. Turn over to Eric.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, Village Board. Thank you for joining us this beautiful Saturday morning. As we've just heard, today is our second budget workshop meeting, and we're going to be talking about a variety of topics. Before you is the agenda for this morning. We'll go through the summary of all of our funds. We'll review our general fund preliminary results for the current fiscal year. Then we'll highlight some of the strategic objectives as they apply to our proposed fiscal year 2025 budget. And then we'll be presenting, and our staff will be presenting the proposed balanced budget for fiscal year 2025. And following that, we'll go through some of the capital and TIF projects for the next fiscal year. And then the most important slide, of course, our summary of all funds. As just mentioned, we are in our second budget workshop meeting. The first occurred on February 16th, where we reviewed the 5-year capital improvement program. And then following this, if there is sufficient consensus from the board, we'll move the next step would be the final budget consideration, which would be at the April 2nd Village Board meeting. As I mentioned previously, what you see here and what you have seen in our past CIP has been a proposed series of projects and a proposed budget that is intentionally aligning with our strategic priorities. You've seen this slide before. It is the previously 6 priorities that we've highlighted for a number of years. In our last CIP, we did add the 7th priority of environmental sustainability. So as I mentioned, in the CIP and then what you will see from staff this morning, you're going to see a series of projects that align with community image, like our next phases of the downtown improvements, which we're happy to report do have a series of grants and other outside funding tied to them as well. Economic development is always a priority, and you'll see some of the first steps in implementing our new Central Cary TIF. Financial stability, and that really is encompassed by our entire presentation today, and once again, a balanced budget despite some of the unusual challenges that we face today and that all municipalities will be facing today. Environmental sustainability, one of the first steps towards that, kind of highlighting it. A lot of our operations do focus on that, but one of the more recent ones is our new electric vehicle pilot program in our water division with our ordering of our first EV, and then within the next fiscal year, the second. Infrastructure maintenance. From the last CIP, you saw a whole litany of projects that we have proposed and things that are needed throughout the village on infrastructure, which is, again, just mentioned this morning, a very high priority and a hot topic. And, of course, public safety, again, always a priority, but I highlighted, particularly this fiscal year budget, with the participation in the new Regional Police Training Center. And, of course, workforce development. And just in our general operation and budgets, the human factor, our staff and our people are probably our most important asset in delivering the services to the village. And you'll see throughout this budget that we do continue to maintain that priority on our staff with training and other resources. Now I'm going to turn it over to Assistant Administrator Sage and Finance Manager Leahy for the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Eric. Good morning, everybody. So this slide shows all of the village's funds, with the only difference being the addition of the TIF number 3 fund. And we're proposing the elimination of the building fund at the end of fiscal year 25. That fund balance will be transferred over to the capital projects fund. Here is the preliminary results for fiscal year 24. Projected revenues are 10.8 million. Projected expenditures are 11.8 million, which does include a $1.5 million transfer to the capital projects fund. That will leave a fund balance of 5.8 million, which is 56%. The village does maintain a minimum 45% unassigned fund balance. So we have budgeted for a $1 million transfer to the capital projects fund in fiscal year 25. Here's one of the village's outstanding debt. It is for the municipal center. This bond will be paid in full in fiscal year 2051. It has an annual interest rate of 3%, which is funded from the bond fund. Here's another outstanding bond. This is from the IEPA for the phosphorus project. This bond will be paid in full in fiscal year 2039. Has an annual interest rate of 1.56%, which is funded from the Water and Sanitation Fund. The other IEP water and sanitation loan was paid off in fiscal year 24, the current fiscal year. And there is a potential for another bond in fiscal year 25 for the Well 14 project. Here is our projected revenues for fiscal year 25. As you can see, there is a slight decrease, which is due to a decrease in the sales tax, which is due to the proposed elimination of the grocery sales tax. This is slightly offset by a projected increase in income taxes and the increase in property taxes. The proposed grocery tax elimination would be implemented in July. The village would not see impact until August, September sales tax receipts. Staff has discussed potentially reducing the capital projects fund transfer and or deferring projects if the impact in revenue is more significant than we budgeted. Here's the revenues just broken down into categories. The major three revenues are still property taxes, income taxes, and sales tax. Just to highlight, the sales tax was 22% of the pie last fiscal year, so it is a decrease of 4%. Here are those three major revenue sources: property tax, income tax, and sales taxes, kind of showing the trends with the past 5 fiscal year actuals, the estimated fiscal year 24, and then the projected fiscal year 25, which does kind of show that decrease in sales tax. Here are budgeted expenditures for fiscal year 25, which as in revenues, it has decreased slightly with increased cost of salaries, benefits, the increased police pension contribution, the additional annual contribution for the regional training center was offset by a one-time elimination of the IRMA annual contribution, as well as a reduction in the transfer to capital projects fund from 1.5 million to 1 million.
So it's important to note that the budget is balanced this year, but part of that is due to the one-time elimination of that contribution. The IRMA Excess Surplus Fund is a fund that we have had access to since becoming a part of IRMA. It is there for us. IRMA oversees that fund, and it's there for IRMA-related items. It cannot be used for anything else.
And as Assistant Administrator Sage mentioned, we're utilizing this option just due to the uncertainty with the proposed grocery tax elimination and, of course, the challenges in estimating that amount. But as you mentioned, it is a balanced budget, and we are looking at ways to, additionally with the capital fund, to be able to pivot and adjust depending on what the actual impacts are and once the state budget is actually determined.
Can you just say for any residents that are here or watching how much we're projecting? Of course, we don't know, but just for the record, how much we're projecting that grocery tax to impact us. I think it's important to say that for anyone that's listening.
At this time, we're estimating roughly around $400,000 to $500,000. The unknowns include if it's going to be implemented at the earliest could be July, but we don't know if it would be implemented later at more at the start of the year. There's been some discussion both ways. And it's also, the state has been less than helpful in helping non-home rule communities understand what the true impact of eliminating that tax will be.
In addition to that, the governor's office has indicated they have no intention of backfilling that with any of their other resources. Again, that's a fund that is specifically meant for municipalities. It has no effect on the state budget. They don't account for it in their budget. It's just a pass-through for municipalities. So the state, in essence, is not they're not making any cuts to accommodate that. They're forcing the cuts to all the municipalities.
Could we roll that number up with your historical knowledge of how much the 2011, when they started holding back income tax, what that total is? So we get a general picture of over the last 10 years how much the state has kept out of our coffers and our staff has had to adjust to?
Sure, it's been roughly $12 million since 2011 that the village has been shorted, not only the village of Cary, but all the municipalities in Illinois, with the reduction of the LGDF, which is the Local Government Distributed Fund. For those that are interested, you pay your state income taxes, and there's been an agreement with the state for the last 50 years that 10% of your income tax comes back to the municipality that you reside. In 2011, very tight fiscal issues that happened in the state, they asked all the municipalities to take a one-time hit, reducing the LGDF by half, and that would be fully restored the following year. That has not happened. We have, through all of our regional channels, been really fighting with the state to bring back the full 10%. Over the last 5-6 years, we've been able to inch that up to about a little bit over 6%, but still it is a substantial hit to us. And then adding on the additional grocery tax reduction is serious money. It's serious money. So, we will continue the fight regionally. I just had a legislative meeting with Metropolitan Leaders Caucus yesterday, and we're all on the same page in how we want to handle this moving forward with the state legislature and the governor's office. But it looks like it's going to happen. They have no doubt that it's going to happen. But until it's actually stated it's happening, we have to project to the best of our ability. Thank you.
So here are those expenses kind of broken down by the departments. As last year and the years prior, police is the biggest piece of the pie at 56%, seconded by public works at 22%.
And a big part of that is just police has more staff compared to the other departments.
Yeah.
We love the police, it's okay. Okay, chief, we're good.
Courtney, can I get you to go back one slide? I want to make one thing clear in the conversations that are going to happen around not only this budget, but around potential sales tax. And the feedback that we all get, and I'm sure that some of you are here and watching either create the feedback or share with us, is there's got to be some room for cuts. That's the way that everybody looks at tax dollars going into any municipal body is find some cuts, find some cuts. In the village of Cary, 56% of your dollars total that come into this village go to the police and 22% public works. So public works are, everything that you drive on and drink and flush away, that's all in. You put those two together, you're at 78%. So when we start talking about trying to find efficiencies, which is a fancier word than cut, we start trying to find ways to save money, it's literally from those critical items that you can draw from. You don't try to improve your own personal bank balance by worrying about where you're spending 20 cents. You worry about where you're spending $2,000. You don't look at the tiny items. You look at the big items for efficiencies. So when people have conversations with me and ask, why can't we just stop spending some money? The first thing out of my mouth is, how many police officers do you want to get rid of? Do you want to be one of those municipalities that doesn't have patrol at night, or we have to rely on the sheriff? So this is the reality of the money that comes into the village of Cary. It's almost 80% of it goes to critical items that I would not be interested in really cutting back on, because that's the safety and health of our community. So I'll get off my soapbox now.
Well said, Trustee Walworth.
And here are the expenses broken down by category. Salaries and benefits still remain the largest piece, with professional services being the third at 11%.
Professional services includes our finance consultants, as well as our outside inspection consultants, legal. So that professional is really, what we often just consider our other staff, right?
That's it. That's the outsourcing. When we've tried to save money in the past, we've outsourced. So really, the vast majority of the professional fees could be rolled into personnel and personnel benefits because they're executing the same functions.
But saving money.
But we're
Because they're
saving money.
outsourced, because we're not paying benefits and things like that. It's through the outside agency, so.
And then here is just the personnel trend throughout the past couple decades. As you can see, in 2009 was the highest with 84 full-time equivalent, which has been whittled down to, currently we're at 60.5 full-time equivalent personnel, with the proposed 2025 being 62.5. That addition of 2 are the vacant police officer positions that were budgeted in fiscal year '24.
So no new positions are being proposed as it relates to FTE. It just, we hadn't had the chance to fill those yet. We've been trying. Oh, it's my turn.
Yes, now Courtney will go over the highlights.
So we'll switch over to Village Hall. So when we talk about the Village Hall portion, that's your admin team, legal, central services, boards and commissions, community development, and finance. Village Hall, all of those put together is roughly 22% of the overall budget. We are proposing $2.3 million this year. We have removed the intern. We had an excellent year with our intern this year, but we are fine to remove them for next year. So that puts us at 7 full-time staff, 1 part-time staff member. That it would be your property maintenance inspector. And then contractual staff would be the finance team as well as IT.
And just one thing about the intern, we would love to have the intern. It was a valuable position, but it's just not affordable.
And then you can see there, that's where we were talking about those contractual services, right? That includes IRMA insurance. Even though we are cutting that contribution, we still have budgeted some dollars for IRMA, and that would be if we had a claim and paying our deductible. We'll go over to police. So police this year, we are budgeting for $6.1 million. It's about a 3.5% increase. That's 27 sworn staff, and there is a slight change. It doesn't impact FTE, but what we're proposing here is to eliminate our 2 part-time records clerks and actually then just make 1 full-time position. So that would give the records department 3 full-time individuals. That part-time you see there is our TSO. And of course, in the police department budget, that includes paying for CCOM as well as our portion of the McHenry County Social Services Program, the crossing guards, which we split 50% with District 26, and then the new addition is the Regional Training Center.
Let me go back to one thing real quick. I apologize. I'm just thinking about this. One of the things that came out in some of these meetings that we've had with our residents is there's a little bit of a misconception about the board and about the mayor and about anyone that's here as an elected official. I just want to make it clear for the record that we do not receive benefits. We do not receive pensions. There was a lot of questions from a few people on that type of thing. So I just wanted to make clear that when we're looking at these things, no one here is getting anything like that.
Thank you.
Here is just where you can see what our expenditure related to the police pension fund will be this coming year. It's $1.3 million, a little under 100,000 increase. This was based on the recommendation that we received, late last year when the actuarial report came in.
Again, this is another state mandated increment that we have to do. We have to have 95% of our pension covered by 2040. One of the things that, love it or hate it, that some of the legislators are looking at is pushing that out from 2040 to 2050. That would, although some people say it's kicking the can down, but it's crippling to a lot of municipalities. And we've targeted 100% because that's how we roll. We want to make sure that we're completely committed to this. So by 2040, as we continue to go, by 2040, we will be 100%. We're a little bit over 60 now, Courtney, are we?
Yes.
A little bit over 60, which is great. We are ahead by far by a lot of the other municipalities, so we're thankful for that. But again, that's another piece of the pie that we have no control over.
So here is the addition. This is brand new to our budget, which is the annual contribution for the Regional Training Center and Firearms Range. That will be $23,000. We're also proposing $10,000, which would go towards the Regional Training Center's capital fund. That's each partner in this training center would contribute. And then also $15,000 for a virtual training simulator. Again, that's just the village's portion. If there are questions about this, I'm actually going to shoot it over to the chief.
Thanks. Again, this is a innovative venture that a lot of people are looking at as it relates to the cooperation between the entities, Algonquin Police Department, Lake and Hills Police Department, McHenry City Police Department, Sheriff's Office, and ourselves. We entered into an intergovernmental agreement where we would share costs as it relates to the operation of this regional training center. And we don't have a year's worth of data yet. So these are proposed or projected costs that we would incur. And all these costs are based on our proportion of sworn personnel. So it's a proportional cost for the operation of the both regional training center, which is the old Village Hall Police Department, and the firearms training center that will be over by Public Works that's slated to be open or operational late April, and we have no history in regards to the operation of that yet. So these are projected costs. The Milo is a virtual training simulator. Again, that would be shared costs, so that it would be available to all those municipalities that are in the Sheriff's Office County that are participating in this. And in fact, we'll be experiencing a demonstration on that here April 4th. So it's a good venture. We entered into an intergovernmental agreement, so we have some obligations in regards to these costs as well.
And to piggyback on that, we're also looking at savings. So we're looking at savings from sending our people out for training, time, money, things like that, that we're also going to recoup from some of this as well, correct?
Oh, there's a lot of different
Correct.
benefits to having that training center here. One
Many.
of them is just that, overtime and travel costs. The other is to attract good training that we don't have to send our personnel to other, south suburbs or Evanston or things of that nature. And then it's also the cooperation between the agencies, so that as we had last Saturday, an incident where we had a number of different agencies involved, and it's not the first time you should become acquainted with your neighbors. That should be, something that's done as a training exercise, so that when it does occur, you are operating seamlessly. But yes, and the other part of that is that it's in our town. It's in the village of Cary, and we are attracting other agencies, sending their personnel here, and they also have to eat and things of that nature, and they'll be patronizing our local establishments as well.
This is one of those unique projects that is exceptional in hitting many of those strategic priorities, not just public safety, but the economic development, the numerous categories. So workforce development in particular. Again, that training, it's a savings in cost for training, but it's also the quality of training that our team and our neighboring communities will receive, which is a benefit to everyone.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, we'll switch over to Public Works. So Public Works is 22% of our overall general fund. We're proposing $2.38 million this year. It's roughly a 5% increase. Staff remains generally the same, except we are proposing an intern for the Public Works Department. That would be to collect GIS data specifically for our stormwater utility, which is definitely needed, I would say. Public Works, of course, covers streets, forestry, fleet, our facilities, our general planning and engineering for future projects, as well as Cary Lake at Rotary Parks maintenance. I just wanted to point out, under this budget also, we have quite a few of our maintenance contracts, including street sweeping, mowing. We have tree removal. That's often the trees that our staff is unable to remove, usually because they're in the power lines or they're just too large for our equipment, as well as cemetery maintenance. This is also where we purchase our road salt. You may remember that we put that back into the general fund 2 years ago, I think. So that's what is all-encompassing in this Public Works budget. We're going to switch funds. We're going to switch over to the Water and Sanitation Fund. So this is a separate enterprise fund that's paid for from, of course, the water bills, right? So we're estimating $5.8 million in revenue, and we are proposing roughly $18 million in expenditures. However, I just keep in mind that of that $18 million, that includes the Well 14 project, which is intended to be paid for utilizing a low-interest IEPA loan. We have applied for that loan. You may have seen on Tuesday's agenda there will be a public hearing related to that loan. That's just one of those steps we need to take. So that's a chunk of that 18 million. And of course, these projects were included in the water sewer rate study. We are proposing no new staff for the upcoming year, but one seasonal hourly staff member. So the projects you see here are the projects we went over last month in the capital improvements plan presentation. So again, you'll see well 14 there, water main replacement, which includes your lead service line replacement, some lift station rehab, some well rehab, some purchasing of new vehicles such as the Vector, water meter replacement. We'll continue that program as well as updating our SCADA. There's some sewer main replacement in there, which includes an enlargement of one of the sewers along Route 31, and then our professional services. So that includes in water and sand. They also assist with paying for our finance contract as well as IRMA, IT, on-call engineering, and some MPDES permits. Capital Projects Fund, most of this will look familiar as well. So a proposed $1.9 million in capital projects. Keep in mind again that these are some of the projects that could potentially be deferred as we wait to see how the grocery tax impacts us. None of these have changed since the presentation last month. Hit some highlights here. Still includes our general roadway repair maintenance as well as our tree maintenance, the purchase of the body-worn cameras and in-car cameras. You may have heard our police department is actually currently trying out one of the body-worn camera options, and I believe they're starting another option in about a month. Downtown improvements, which includes the Depot Plaza, potential purchase of modular barrier system for our special events, holiday decorations, community signage. Just wanted to point out that $125,000 is not only purchasing the signs, but it's also to complete a master plan related to that signage. We approved that contract last meeting, maybe 2 meetings ago.
Quick question.
Yes.
I'm assuming that list is not in priority, correct? So when we talk about grocery sales tax potentially end up going away, which one of these or group of them would actually be the ones that could potentially be affected?
So that's something that staff would evaluate, but some of the ones that are pressing, right, that we couldn't cut would be, for example, body-worn cameras. We're required to implement that. The Depot Plaza is a project that is primarily paid for with a grant, and there are rules related to that grant on when we need to expend those dollars. So that also would be a project that would need to move forward. Beyond that, that would be a discussion we would need to have on what can wait and what cannot.
And you will be provided with a recommendation from staff, obviously, once we know what the impact is, the timing of the impact, and then obviously the amount, because the amount will also dictate which pieces of the puzzle maybe can be easily delayed or deferred.
If I could just add one more thing, is the body-worn cameras, there's no funding mechanism for that. That's an unfunded mandate that the village has to absorb. There are some grants that we can apply for, but right now it's unfunded and we have to pay for it, and it has to be implemented January 1st.
Thanks, Chief. So the Central Cary TIF number 3. We had one change. It's in blue there since you last saw these projects, and that was the inclusion of $300,000 for potential incentive agreements. This would only be used as needed. So as requests came forward that the board approved, that money would be available to utilize. One thing to keep in mind, and maybe Brian can explain this a little better, is often with these incentive agreements, you can kind of decide when that payment actually occurs.
That's correct. So this is just budgeting for a contingency, not to say that we do have any pending incentive agreements in place, but generally if a project were to occur that the village wanted to provide assistance for, there could be certain milestones that would be included in that agreement that the funds would not be expended until a CO certificate is issued for the building, or if it's a mixed-use building, that the retail is operational, and a second payment would be when you have residential units occupiable as well. So those are just planning for potential. It's not to say that we have anything imminent at this point, but just more to have a dollar amount in place that can be used in the budget for those purposes if need be.
That seems like a real specific number, 392,000. So
No,
how did
sorry, so it's 300,000. The 92,000
was
still
there already.
includes the 40,000 for the business facade
Got it.
grant that we showed, as well as the 52,000 for Jack's Channel's preliminary engineering.
Makes
And-
more sense? Thank you.
And,
Just a number I picked out
Yeah.
there.
and there is a mechanism at some point that we could make an agreement to recoup some of those expenses as well if we put them out, correct?
Correct. So currently, the board, before we implemented the TIF, just an example, for the Maplewood Access Road, the board passed a resolution that indicated that funds that are expended for that roadway could be reimbursed from the TIF. So we've been tracking those expenses, and that could be specifically in line towards the TIF. So similarly, if there are other projects that the village is expending, we can recoup those costs as well to reimburse the TIF from that standpoint.
And just to mention, these TIF projects as well are also projects that we could be looking to defer, considering this year, as discussed at the last meeting, the capital projects would be, we would be transferring actually 1.2 million from capital projects to the TIF fund, as well as 100,000 from the water fund, just to fund these projects for the coming year. And then, of course, they'd be paid back as the TIF creates increment. So these could also be deferred. An example, right, would be phase 2 design for Maplewood Access Road.
And just real quick to jump in here as well. So as the board's aware, the village approved the TIF in August of last year. Technically, the TIF started January 1st from a taxing revenue standpoint. We don't know what the first year is going to produce yet from an increment standpoint, as the tax bills have not been extended. Those will probably have a better idea of how the TIF will start performing at this time next month when tax bills are released. So then we can have an idea going forward as what the base year would be. But then as development occurs within the TIF, we will also track year over year and report annually what the TIF fund is performing, and can give that information back to the board as well.
I'll add one community interest note. The county clerk, I believe, the assessor's office, the folks who put out your property tax bill have stolen an idea from the village of Cary. Your new property tax bill that you're going to see next year is going to show every single taxing body how much money goes to them and how to contact them. So it reminded me very much of the dollar bill that we've been putting out for years, showing where your property tax dollar actually goes to. So you will see a different looking property tax bill here in a couple months.
All right, parking fund. Parking
That's-
fund is
You're not,
Yeah.
not a lot to say.
a quick and easy one really here. The biggest expenditure is that $70,000 for updating the parking terminals. Those are the terminals when you're paying for parking. They are out of date. They've reached end of life, absolutely. And then commuter lot maintenance just includes restriping as well as some landscaping. And those general operating expenses are items such as, IT for the station, the internet for the station, as well as the cameras. It also includes additional fencing, just general maintenance as it may be needed as well. So it's $170,750. Mentioned this last meeting, but I want to mention it again. The revenue has not gone back up to pre-pandemic levels, but we have seen it, it is moving upward. We are seeing the commuter lots being utilized more, which is a great sign. I'm going to kick it over to Brian for the big slide.
Thank you, Courtney. So here is a summary of all the funds. First row shows the projected balances at the end of this fiscal year 24, with the budgeted revenues, budgeted expenditures, and the transfers in fiscal year 25, which leaves us with our estimated fund balance at the end of fiscal year 25. Just a couple highlights. The general fund ending fund balance of $4.8 million is 45% of the unassigned fund balance. As Courtney kind of mentioned with the TIF, It's going to be funded by a $100,000 transfer from the Water and Sanitation Fund to pay for the lead service replacement, line replacement, with the $1.2 million being transferred from the Capital Projects Fund that will be paid back. As you can see too, the building fund does have a ending fund balance of 0 because we are closing that and moving the fund balance to the Capital Projects Fund.
And when we're talking about the building fund and closing that out, that was long talked about, that after this building was completed, any leftover funds we would utilize in the capital projects fund, especially for downtown projects or other major infrastructure improvements such as that.
Right.
And to point out that is savings, that's left over from what we had budgeted for this building. So that
Correct.
directly correlates to the folks who put together that project here on staff, that we're able to bring back almost $1 million to use in general operations that had been set aside for this building.
Correct, and the foresight of the board and staff to make sure that we were committed to making sure the first couple of years we didn't have any issues that we needed to address, any potential punch list items that we were responsible for. We let that fund ride for an additional year to make sure that we had the capital to do it. But things are working well here, and we move on. And that's been the desire of the board since we initiated that building fund, that any additional funds that we would get would go towards the downtown improvements and transferred over.
There is one fund I would like to just discuss for a moment. So vehicle and equipment fund, you'll see there is going to have an estimated fund balance of around $130,000. So this is the fund that we pay for all, besides water sanitation, all vehicles and equipment. We initiated our leasing program 5 years or so ago, and it did help us stretch those dollars this whole time, which was excellent. But we are getting towards the end of that fund balance, so next year we will need to talk options on how to continue purchasing or leasing our vehicles. Our leasing program right now, I think it's around $250,000-ish. For all our leasing program, but there are still pieces of equipment and vehicles that we have to outright purchase. That includes plows. No surprise, a plow truck is expensive, right? We were estimating $300,000 this year, and we have another that we will need to purchase in the upcoming years. So right now, absolutely in a good position, but just something to keep in mind as we're looking towards the future.
And you might recall previously the Vehicle and Equipment Fund did have funding years ago through the impact fees from the Meyer Materials gravel quarry operations. But obviously, we have that beautiful Curry Lake at Rotary Park today, so that impact fee is no longer part of our revenue stream. So that leasing program was intended to, again, stretch those dollars and reapportion our ability to continue forward without that revenue stream. But it is something, again, not necessarily for today, but the next series of discussions for options in the future.
That is our presentation for you today, Board. Are there any additional questions?
Comments?
I have one quick question. The parking fund, $70,000 to update I'm assuming you guys are replacing the consoles?
Yes.
Or have we not looked at just going scan with an app and pay online to fully remove them?
I would say that could be an option, but obviously from the general population, there's a desire and probably a need for a variety of payment options. Like Metra, for example, they've moved from are moving away from and have moved away from having a ticket agent in their stations to paying solely with the app or on the train. Metra has actually maintained that what used to be a ticket agent is now a customer service representative, because there have been challenges with fully migrating to an all-app system. Some of the population just aren't comfortable with it yet, and the app has apps tend to have sometimes some implementation hiccups as well, especially with the financial side of it. So at this time, with the daily fee being utilized primarily or sometimes by users that aren't daily or frequent riders, occasional riders, that daily fee option and the ability to pay at the terminal there is critical. But this also provides that option to where it's not all fully cash-based. Obviously, these terminals have the credit card options as well.
Okay. Is it 2 terminals or 1 terminal?
We have
There's
1,
like
2, 3, 4.
Four,
Or,
6.
sorry, 6.
Are we
Six,
condensing? Or,
Yeah, we have condensed already, actually. We have eliminated, there's some redundancy. There used to be 2 terminals, I believe, per remote location in each of the farther sections of the lot. I believe now there's only 1 at each of those locations, plus we have 1 at each of the 2 shelters
And-
along the platform.
okay.
And also to clarify, there is an option to pay. They don't have to pay at the terminal. It's called
Yeah.
Park Mobile, and that's been in place for a number of years. So we provide both options.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying.
Questions? Other questions?
Does the income side of the budget, is it including anything for the dispensary yet?
So related to the municipal tax that we take in, we actually budgeted that fully into the capital projects fund, as was requested a number of years ago when we approved that municipal tax. So we budgeted, I believe, 60,000.
65, I think, 60,
Yeah.
65.
Because we've been averaging about $5,000 a month, far below what we would
Far below
like
the
to believe.
50,000.
Far below.
Wow.
Yeah.
Far below is even,
It's
Far below.
So I mean, I guess a positive is to say the capital projects fund does actually have a revenue source this year.
And, you know, as just, you know, I have, in some of the conversations that we've had with residents, they're questioning about, well, you know, to your point, is it the revenue that we expected? And we're like, no. And I said, that's only, each individual location is probably going to drop because the saturation in the market is going to do that. Like, for instance, our friends in Lake in the Hills, they were enjoying like $500,000 a year. This next year, they're only budgeting $300,000 because of Cary, because of Crystal Lakes, 2 new. So it's almost going to be like liquor stores. They're going to be around. You know, it's no secret, but there's another dispensary that's looking in Cary as well. So, you know, we have to look at this in a realistic. It was disappointing. We thought for sure this would be an unbelievable opportunity for us, and we were led to believe that. But, you know, we make do with what you have. But hey, it's $5,000 is $5,000. $60,000 is $60,000. So,
and the only other comment that I have is, and this one's tough to say from me, is the budget for additional downtown improvements is a big number. And as much as I hate to say it, I could see being more selective on some of those and not implementing all of them and
Absolutely.
saving the money, putting it elsewhere. I mean, the way it looks now is 100% better than it was 2 years ago.
Right.
And, you know, do we need to put another $1 million into it immediately? I could see the jury's out in my mind.
well, part of that is because we have to. We've committed to grants. So grants are contingent upon our ability to co-pay. So, you know, for the next 2 phases, the funds have already been allocated. And I don't know if everybody knows out there that Jan Schakowsky's office, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky's office was able to award the Village of Cary $850,000 towards phase 3, or the final phase.
And actually how that grant was, or so that was through the community project funding at the federal level. Basically, representatives have the opportunity to put forth certain projects, and Congresswoman Schakowsky's office chose the Village of Cary's as one of hers that she proposed, and it was chosen at the full federal level. How that was written when we proposed that was actually for phase 2 and 3, right. So potentially some of that $850,000 could be used towards the Depot Plaza as well, which is excellent news considering 60% of the Depot Plaza project was already paid for from the RTA grant that we received as well.
In addition, part of those funds come from the donation, from the generous donation from the Glanicki family.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to negate any of their, you know, the funding when there's a need for a match, but we can look at the discretionary ones, that's all I'm kind of.
Absolutely, and moving forward, any type of different things, you know, when we're planning, we talk about the various projects, you know, it's, you know, the needs versus the wants. But we've committed to the next 2, but after that, it's up in the air.
Sorry, I was just going to say, for example, some of the downtown improvements that were included in there were like the modular barrier system, holiday decorations. Those items absolutely could be looked at as potential deferments.
I think we're tiptoeing around a topic that needs a little extra light. And what that is information and the correct information out there for everybody, because misinformation or bad information or outright lies are put on about a lot of different things, particularly when it comes to how your money is being spent. So I would ask staff, would it be too burdensome to put at the forefront somewhere, website, social media, I know we do in our conversations every day, exactly what the explanation just said, which is, yes, we're gonna spend $1 million downtown, whatever number. However, we're required to spend that million so we can get 2 million for free, or whatever those numbers are. There's so many different of those grants and type opportunities that have a required spend on our behalf. The person giving it says, great, I'll give you $1 million as long as you put in $1 million. That's free money. It just requires us to make a spend. So I'd like to see some sort of a chart or even a list or a sheet that just says, yes, we are getting in this fiscal year's budget, we're allocated to get $1.2 million worth of free money, and that free money gift requires us to spend $1.2 million as well. That will allow all of us and those who are out championing the things that Cary does well, say, okay, yes, the blue sign in Cary downtown, I know you might not like it, but it didn't cost us anything. And yes, they are spending $3 million on a very small area of the village, which is our downtown, but that's so we can get X amount more back in free money. So I think that's a really important part to put out there.
And just to add, a part of the downtown project could be paid for utilizing TIF funds, which are also reimbursable through the TIF.
It's really about just getting information out.
Right, and it was.
Much more information we can have out there, the better.
Yeah, one of the information sessions that we had regarding this, people were, a lot of them were like, why haven't you done this sooner? Well, we're doing it now. But one thing is, I haven't brought it up to staff yet, but they mentioned that why don't we create a sign when we're doing a project? You were there for that? Create a sign for whatever project you're doing. This is funded by this. This is a grant. This is through the sales tax, if we're fortunate enough to get that. This project was paid for by this. So it puts a project with what they've agreed to do. And I thought that was an outstanding.
And it kind of piggybacks on what Chris came up and talked about, like how do we know where the money is being spent? So it's really being very as transparent as possible. You couldn't be more transparent than doing something like that to let you know, hey, here's where this came from.
Trustee Collier, I have not heard a word from you today. I'm good. Oh, you're good? Yep. Okay. Anything else? Staff, as usual, outstanding job. We appreciate everything that you do to keep us fiscally sound. I think that you follow the board's lead quite well, and you know exactly where the funds need to go. It's going to be an interesting next year as declining revenue comes from the state. Again, it's a defunded by the state kind of a thing. And instead of unfunded mandates, now they're taking money away from us. So it's going to be interesting to see how things go. Anyway, but thank you for everybody spending their day on Saturday morning here. This has been great. Eric and your staff, thank you.
Could I suggest something?
If you'd like to come up to the podium, restate your name and address, please.
Chris on Lloyd Street. Is there any way, even if it's like a half sheet of paper to put out with the water bills, the city's website and everything, you know, the information where they can go look to see what's going on? Because we've already seen, well, I got it, my dad's got it, and we look at it, and it shows that the garbage company isn't picking up lawn and leaf bags till the first week in April. We've already seen them out by the curb, and it's like, these people don't, but this way, if they see the website, that they could go there, and then they could look at the emails, if they choose to.
Absolutely, we could add that. So there's a little portion on your water bill up in the top left that we could absolutely add that information to. That's a good idea.
And we do, when it comes time, we push things out through social media, and it's on our website, all the different functions of the Public Works. So, yeah, we can take care of that.
And then one other thing, the crosswalks at Norman, and I don't know the street there, are not painted. The road was paved last year, but the crosswalks were not. It's the first intersection from Cary Algonquin.
On Norman?
By the fire station.
Oh, on Cary Algonquin Road?
No. It's.
We will definitely look at that. I know where you're talking about. Yeah. I'll talk to Public Works and we'll check it out.
There's 2 crosswalks that need to be painted. So, other than that,
No problem.
that's it.
Thank you.
Chris.
Any other comments?
And then, Mayor, it sounds like we, if it's okay with the board, it sounds like we have consensus to at least move the proposed budget for the April 2nd meeting still.
You have your direction. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 9:55. Underneath the hour I was promised, so outstanding. Outstanding.